Maybe we can move on to high-cost medications. We know that there's high costs associated with oncology products, and there's many ways to manage those costs, including narrowing the specialty networks, oncology pathway programs, prior authorizations, and even utilization review that includes split fill. Cheryl, can you discuss some methods for controlling oncology drug spending? In fact, I'm going to throw this at you, Renee. If you could maybe talk about some methods for controlling that drug spend that you believe can be most impactful.
Yes, so there are many tools available in terms of utilization management, especially for payers, prior auth being one of them. But I think what's most important is that you pick the right tool that can get the end result, which is really promoting appropriate use of the medication. So understanding the diagnosis, understanding that the patient has the right diagnosis, kind of preventing off-label use except in cases where it is evidence-supported and medically necessary. There's split fill programs that can be used to help mitigate some of the costs and wasted costs for patients that can't tolerate the therapy. So working with the specialty pharmacies to implement some of those programs as well.
Can we talk maybe, Cheryl, a little bit about split fill and how it really helps a payer in the beginning to overcome the high cost of maybe a treatment failure?
Sure. So within the split fill programs, these drugs are generally identified as the higher cost therapies. So we see these at ranges anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per patient per month. The payer will decide that they will put this on a split fill. What this really means is half the month. So you get a 2-week to a 15-day supply out to the patient. And then the specialty pharmacy is contacting that patient for refill sooner. So really helping to identify those areas where the agent is going to work for that patient or where the patient is not able to tolerate. One of the things that we've been able to work with payers with is the time that the drug will be on the split fill. So if the patient successfully navigates through 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks of that therapy, generally that patient is going to continue on that therapy. So having the flexibility to put a drug on a split fill for, say, the first 6 weeks and then move beyond once you get patient controlled on the therapy is important.
Very good. Any other comments, Stacey? Or
I think just really in that case as well, there's definitely benefit and value to all of the key stakeholders. I think the important thing, as Cheryl mentioned, is just to really educate the patient up front on what's exactly happening, to set those expectations, and to let them know what the split fill program means to them and how they can move forward with their treatment regimen.
Thank you.
I think just another interesting piece, CMS made it mandatory in long-term care and skilled facilities to use that same philosophy of dispensing brand name medications in 7 or 14-day increments. And we've developed some programs where we've gone to larger skilled facilities and offered them oncology clinical management programs where we can offer 7 to 14 days usually. And it's given the facility greater control over their expenses when the patient is a Med A, and it's given Medicare savings when the patient is, a Med D traditional plan. So I think split fill is a wonderful program. I'd also mention that a non-biased pathway that would offer the appropriate medication is another wonderful way to make sure that the patient's getting the proper therapy. And if you can have a non-biased version where you can take out some of the reimbursement challenges so that reimbursement is not part of the formulary decision and it's just about appropriate care. And it's irrelevant if it's a generic older oncology medication or a expensive newer one. It's going to ultimately produce the best outcomes.
I think another thing to mention then real quick about split fill is, from a manufacturer perspective, it's not always a bad thing to have a drug on a split fill. When the drug is split fill, that specialty pharmacy is contacting the patient twice in any 1 month. And it's generally in these calls when we're reaching out to the patients, these are live phone calls that check in with the patient to see how they're doing on therapy. So if we have a patient who's experiencing some difficulties with therapy, maybe needs to down dose, maybe needs to go on some type of side effect management program, we can identify that early on and help keep the patient on the therapy.
And I think you're exactly correct, and I think the specialty pharmacies really offer that support usually 24/7. So I think because this landscape has changed in oncology and more oral agents are coming to the market and being prescribed, I think it's unclear who has ownership over managing these patients. So, when it's administered in the physician's office, the physician and the nurses have the oversight and they know that the patient gets all of the drug while they're there. When they leave with that prescription for their oral medication, who has that oversight and whose responsibility is it? So the specialty pharmacies in a split fill program do have the benefit of all of those touches, and I think it really does benefit the patient to be able to reach out to them that often.
Yeah, specialty pharmacy definitely.